Hi guys, welcome to today's session. Thank you all for your responses on yesterday. And our yesterday's quiz question was, which is the nodal agency of PM Vanthan Yojana at national level? And guys, the answer is, it is TriFed. That is the right answer. Let's now start today's session. First question for the day, with reference to quadricycle vehicle verification, consider the following statement. Statement 1, it is an American vehicle category for four-wheeled microcars. Statement 2, they are defined by limitations in terms of weight, engine power and speed. And statement 3, there are two categories of quadricycles, namely light quadricycles and heavy quadricycles. Which of the above statements is correct? Option A 1 and 2 only, option B 2 and 3 only, option C 1 and 3 only, and option D 1, 2 and 3. Guys, the correct answer here is statement 1 is wrong. It is an European Union category for four-wheeled microcars. So that statement is wrong. Hence the answer comes option B 2 and 3 only. As we said, the quadricycle is a European Union vehicle category for four-wheeled microcars. It allows these vehicles to be designed to less stringent requirements when compared to regular cars. It is basically a set of standards in terms of weight, engine power and speed. And there are two categories of quadricycles. One is light quadricycle L6E and heavy quadricycle L7E. And government has notified BS6 norms, emission norms for quadricycles recently. That's why this question is asked. And the emission norms are in line with EU's WMTC cycle, that is World Motorcycle Test Cycle, that is WMTC, and it is a system of driving cycles used to measure fuel consumption and emissions in motorcycles. And the methods are stipulated as part of global technical regulation established under UN World Forum for Harmonization of Vehicle Regulations. It is also known as WP.29. It is, please note that WP.29, that is UN World Forum for Harmonization of Vehicle Regulations. So that is it. Moving to the second question. Second question is, which among the following is true with regard to heat waves in India? Statement 1, it is considered when the maximum temperature of a station reaches at least 40 degrees Celsius for hilly and at least 30 degrees Celsius for plain regions. Statement 2, children, the elderly and those with pre-existing morbidities are particularly vulnerable to heat waves. Statement 3, urban heat island effects can make ambient temperatures feel 3 to 4 degrees more than what they are. Select the correct answer using the codes given below. Option A 1 only, option B 2 and 3 only, option C 1 and 3 only, and option D 1, 2 and 3. Guys, here the correct answer is option B 2 and 3 only. The Indian Meteorological Department has set certain criteria for declaring heat waves. One is that heat wave need not be considered till the maximum temperature of a station reaches at least 40 degrees Celsius for plains and at least 30 degrees Celsius for hilly regions. Second one is, when the normal maximum temperature of a station is less than or equal to 40 degrees Celsius, heat wave departure from the normal is 5 degrees Celsius to 6 degrees Celsius, and severe heat wave departure from the normal is 7 degrees Celsius or more. Third one is, when the normal maximum temperature of a station is more than 40 degrees Celsius, heat wave departure from the normal is 4 degrees Celsius to 5 degrees Celsius, and severe heat wave departure from the normal is 6 degrees Celsius or more. And another criteria is, when the actual maximum temperature remains 45 degrees Celsius or more, irrespective of normal maximum temperature, heat waves should be declared. So that are the criteria laid down by IMD for declaring heat waves. And the health impacts of heat waves typically involve dehydration, heat cramps, heat stroke, etc. And recently temperature rised above 45 degrees Celsius in some part of isolated pockets of Vidarbha in eastern Maharashtra, Telangana, Andhra Pradesh and Odisha. So that was in news, that's why this question is asked. Now moving to the last question for the day. Last question is with reference to the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea UNCLOS. Consider the following statements. Statement 1. It is the only international convention which stipulates a framework for state jurisdiction in maritime spaces. Statement 2. The high seas are considered as the common heritage of all mankind and is beyond any national jurisdiction. Which of the above statements is correct? Option A 1 only, option B 2 only, option C both 1 and 2, and option D neither 1 nor 2. Guys, here both the statements are correct, so it is option C both 1 and 2. UNCLOS of 1982, which is also known as Law of the Sea, which divides marine areas into 5 main zones. Baseline is there. It is the low water line along the coast as officially recognized by coastal state. And the first zone is internal waters. They are waters on the landward side of the baseline from which breadth of the territorial sea is measured, and each coastal state has full sovereignty over its internal waters as like its land territory. Examples of internal waters includes bays, ports, inlets, rivers, and even lakes that are connected to the sea. And there is no right of innocent passage through internal waters. Innocent passage refers to passing through the waters which are not prejudicial to peace and security. However, nations have the right to suspend the same. Next zone is territorial sea. It extends seaward up to 12 nautical miles from the baseline, and the coastal states have sovereignty and jurisdiction over territorial sea. And these rights of coastal states extends not only on the surface but also to the seabed, subsoil, and even airspace. And the coastal states' rights are limited by the innocent passage through the territorial sea, which means innocent passage is allowed in territorial sea. And next zone is contiguous zone. Here the area is seaward up to 24 nautical miles from baselines. It is an intermediary zone between territorial sea and high seas. And unlike territorial sea, the contiguous zone only gives jurisdiction to the state on the ocean's surface and floor. It does not provide air and space rights. That is the difference. And next we have exclusive economic zone, EEZ. This is up to 200 nautical miles from its baselines. Within its EEZ, a coastal state has sovereign rights for the purpose of exploring, exploiting, conserving, and managing natural resources, whether living or non-living, of the seabed and subsoil, and rights to carry out activities like production of energy from water, currents, and wind is also allowed. It does not give a coastal state the right to prohibit or limit freedom of navigation or overflight, subject to very limited exceptions. So that is EEZ. And the last one we have high seas. The ocean surface and the water column beyond the EEZ are referred to as high seas, and it is considered as the common heritage of all mankind and is beyond any national jurisdiction. States can conduct activities in these areas as long as they are for peaceful purposes such as transit, marine science, and undersea exploration. And guys, there is a dispute going on between Somalia and Kenya over the sea rights. You can see the map of disputed area here. This often comes in the news. That's why this question is asked. And it's time for our quiz question. And today's quiz question is: name the strait that connects the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden. Name the strait that connects Red Sea to the Gulf of Aden. So please post your answers in the comment section. That's all for today, guys. Please post your scores also in the comment section. We'll meet tomorrow with another set of questions. Thank you for watching.